Welcome, dear listener, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a truly mind-bending journey, one that asks us to rethink pretty much everything we thought we knew about reality itself. We're going to explore a theory of everything, but not just any theory. This one doesn't just aim to describe physics.
No, it aims to fundamentally refound it.
Exactly. Refound it, uniting it with mathematics, even consciousness. This isn't just about tweaking the existing models, It's about building a whole new foundation.
It really is.
So get ready to have your core assumptions about what constitutes reality, what zero truly means, and even your own role as an observer. Well, possibly turned upside down.
Indeed. We are diving deep into the unified coherence theory of everything, or UCTE.
Yeah.
As presented by Philip Randolph Lillian in his work, Unified Coherence, Recursive Ontologies, and Multi-Layer Topology. And like you said, this isn't just another scientific hypothesis. It's presented as a really comprehensive framework. It dares to challenge our most fundamental assumptions about existence itself, proposing a universe where everything from the tiniest quantum fluctuation to, well, the grandest thought, emerges from a single underlying invariant principle.
Which is?
Coherence.
Coherence, okay.
Our exploration today is about understanding this audacious claim, its sophisticated architecture, and its, well, sweeping implications across all scales of reality.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission today, for you listening, is to cut through the, let's be honest, the inherent complexity of such an ambitious theory and explore UCTE's core claim that coherence is the fundamental invariant principle. We want to offer you a kind of shortcut to understanding this revolutionary new perspective and why it matters so profoundly, hopefully with plenty of aha moments along the way.
That's the goal.
We'll look at how it proposes to move from sort of undifferentiated field of pure potential. You called it a pregnant void earlier.
That's the term used, yes. A generative nullity.
Right. From that, all the way to the discrete, measurable phenomena we observe every single day. So yeah, prepare to expand your mind.
Okay, so right off the bat, UCTE introduces a really radical premise. It flips our conventional understanding pretty much on its head. It posits coherence not just as a property that systems have or a state they can get to.
Right, not just a result.
But as the actual ontological ground from which systems emerge.
Exactly, the source.
Imagine that for a moment.
Yeah.
Coherence isn't something that happens to reality. It is the source of reality. It's the ultimate foundation, the underlying fabric, kind of, from which everything else is woven. What does this even mean for how we begin to conceptualize the universe?
Well, precisely. If we take that seriously, it implies that everything we observe around us, matter, space-time, energy,
Even consciousness.
even consciousness itself,
Yeah.
they aren't fundamental in the way we usually think of them. Instead, they're all described as expressions of coherence reductions and symmetry dynamics.
Okay, coherence reductions. We'll need to unpack that.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah.
But think of it like a pristine, perfectly unified field of pure coherence. And through various processes of, well, reduction and differentiation, it gives rise to all the diverse, asymmetric, measurable forms we see.
So it breaks down, in a way, or specifies itself.
It differentiates. Specifies itself is a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And this theory isn't content with just being a new interpretation of physics. It explicitly states it's a refounding of it, offering both a new ontology and a new
A
mathematics.
whole new math. Wow.
All firmly grounded in this principle of coherence. It's a complete philosophical, mathematical, and physical overhaul, starting from this one fundamental idea.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. The theory emphasizes, and this is a direct quote, I think, that observation, coherence, and being are inseparable.
That's a core tenet, yes.
Now, that sounds profound, but what does it mean for how we see ourselves or any conscious entity in the universe?
It suggests we're not just passive observers looking at some pre-existing independent reality, right?
That's watching a movie.
Exactly. Instead, our very act of observing, or really any act of reduction, that leads to discrete phenomena showing up. It's fundamentally intertwined with the emergence of reality through coherence.
So the act of observing somehow participates.
It implies a kind of active participation in the unfolding of existence. Observation is a form of coherence reduction. And this raises a really important question, almost a philosophical pivot point. If observation, coherence, and being are truly inseparable, well, it inherently positions standard physics. What we currently understand about particles, forces, space-time.
Our everyday physics.
Our everyday physics, yeah.
Yeah.
As a downstream reduction of a much more profound, coherence-driven reality.
So our current models are like shadows.
That's a great analogy used in the material, actually. It's like observing shadows dancing on a cave wall and meticulously cataloging their movements
Okay.
without ever realizing there's a light source in a three-dimensional object casting them.
Ah,
UCTE aims to reveal the light source and the object, the underlying coherence that gives rise to the observable shadows of conventional physics.
so our current physical laws are seen as emergent properties.
Emergent properties of this deeper ontology, exactly. They're useful, incredibly predictive for applications, but maybe not the fundamental truth.
Now, let's talk about something you think you understand completely. Zero. The number zero. Absence. Nothing.
It seems simple enough.
Right. But UCTE wants you to think again. It suggests this seemingly simple concept holds a profound secret at the heart of creation. It introduces this enigmatic concept called Zeta Naught, or Z's,
ZU?
which is explicitly distinct from the conventional mathematical zero.
Crucially distinct.
This isn't just playing with symbols, is it? It's a fundamental reimagining.
It's absolutely critical to grasp this distinction. It's a cornerstone of UCTE's whole ontology, its generative power. Let's try to clarify exactly what makes them different. So, conventional mathematical zero, that's the familiar one, represents absence of magnitude, absence of value.
Nothingness, emptiness.
Right. An empty set, the result of cancellation. You could call it a flat void. It's passive. An endpoint.
Okay.
Zeo, Zeta Naught. This is something entirely different, really revolutionary in its implications.
Yeah.
UCTE defines Zeo as the ontological null, a generative seed state containing latent coherence potential.
Latent potential. So it's not empty.
Not empty.
Yeah.
It's described as the pregnant void from which unity emerges.
Pregnant void. I like that.
Unlike the mathematical zero, zero isn't merely absence. It's almost like an operator, an active principle carrying the possibility of coherence emergence.
An operator. How so?
It holds the potential, the seed, the blueprint for coherence. It's the irreducible base for recursion.
That distinction between a flat void and a pregnant void is...
Yeah, that's profound.
So if Z isn't just nothing, but carries this latent coherence potential, how does that potential activate? What's the very first spark, the mechanism that lets reality begin to emerge from Zeo?
Well, the theory presents a seed equation that dramatically showcases Zeo's generative role.
Right, the recursive one.
Exactly. Now, mathematically, that looks problematic, indeterminate.
In conventional math, maybe. But in UCTE, it's interpreted differently. It isn't a paradox to be explained away. It's seen as an ontological bridge from absence to presence.
An ontological bridge?
Yes. The seed equation is interpreted not as a limit or some indeterminate form, but as a statement of fundamental emergence. In this equation, Z itself acts as the base operator.
The thing that starts the recursion?
Precisely. Its role is to ensure that recursion is not sterile, but yields unity.
So it guarantees something comes from, well, nothing, or from potentiality.
It's the mechanism by which unity emerges from the ontological null. It's the first act of differentiation, a self-referential process where Z's latent coherence potential resolves itself into a singularity of unity. One. And this concept is further illuminated by UCTE's take on zero factorial, zero being equal to one.
Right. Zero, one. Usually just taken as a definition in math for consistency. Conventionally, yes. For combinatorics, calculus, it just works out nicely if we define it that way. But in UCTE, it's seen not as a mere definition, but as a coherence reduction where nullity condenses into singularity.
So it's another example of this emergence.
Exactly. It's the very first act of differentiation from the ontological null, Z. An initial step of coherence resolving itself into a discrete unit of being. A statement about the generative power of this pregnant nullity. To use an analogy from the source material, think of it like this. If the conventional mathematical zero, it's just a bare point, a placeholder for nothingness, an empty canvas.
Okay.
Then Zeta Naught, Z, is that point with coherent structure latent inside it.
Like a seed.
Exactly. It's not empty. It's a structured seed containing all the potential for the complex universe to unfold. Like a seed that isn't just a dot, but a miniaturized coherent blueprint of the entire plant it will become.
Right.
This provides the irreducible base for these recursive coherence dynamics. And it fundamentally distinguishes this ontological mathematics, where zero acts as an operator, from conventional math, where zero is just a value.
So the seed equation isn't a paradox.
It's transformed into a profound statement of emergence. How an active generative nullity leads to unity. The very first step.
Okay, so this journey from a pregnant void, Z, all the way to our complex, diverse universe, it sounds like it needs a map, a clear pathway for how this incredible unfolding happens.
It does, and UCTE provides one.
Yeah, it introduces what it calls the four-layer ontological ladder,
Yeah.
describing it as a progressive differentiation of coherence, like a cosmic journey from pure potential down to our observable world.
That's a good way to frame it, a cascade.
Can you give us an analogy for each stage? If the holelectic is pure potential, like, say, an undifferentiated ocean, what does the holelectic look like? Ripples, standing waves, something else?
Indeed, this latter is absolutely fundamental to the UCTE framework. It shows how coherence, initially this invariant totality, gradually differentiates and reduces, like a cosmic cascade, as you said. Let's break down each layer using your ocean analogy. 1. Omnilectic layer, described as the invariant totality of coherence, a pre-differentiated field of infinite potential. So your analogy is perfect. The entire, boundless, perfectly calm, undifferentiated ocean, utterly unified, no ripples, no currents.
Pure potential. The source.
The ultimate source, the ground state, where everything is unmanifested potential, pure coherence, pristine, undivided. It's the resonant ground state of this coherence vacuum. 2. Holelectic layer. Moving down, we get to the dynamic resonance field where coherence becomes structured, but not yet discrete.
Okay, so the ocean starts moving.
Exactly. In our analogy, this is where the first vast, gentle currents begin to stir, or maybe deep, resonant standing waves establish themselves. You can sense patterns, structures, but they haven't broken the surface yet. They're still fluid, interconnected, inseparable from the whole.
Potential starts taking form.
Yes. Patterns, symmetries, resonant modes begin to establish themselves, but without crystallizing into distinct, separate things. Still fluid, dynamic, interacting structures carrying latent information. 3. Relational layer. Then we have the level where coherence reductions yield relations, interactions, and fields.
So the currents and waves start interacting.
Precisely. Continuing the analogy, this is where those deep currents and standing waves create interference patterns, vortexes, dynamic relationships between distinct areas of the ocean. They're not solid objects yet, but forces, connections, defining the dynamics of the system.
Like fields emerging.
Exactly. As coherence continues to differentiate, it gives rise to the fundamental relationships and interactions that will eventually define physical laws and forces. Connections emerge. Dynamics of fields, electromagnetic, gravitational start to appear for the structured coherence of the holelectic layer. 4. Derived layer. And finally, we reach the domain of particles, forces, and measurable phenomena as downstream residues of coherence reductions.
The stuff we can actually see and measure.
Right. This is where the waves break on the shore, forming distinct, measurable droplets, or where icebergs might calve off, becoming discrete entities.
Our everyday reality.
Our everyday, tangible reality, electrons, photons, gravity, the observable events physics currently describes, these are seen as the end products, the measurable residues of this continuous process of coherence, differentiating, and reducing.
And our science mostly deals with this layer.
Our current scientific instruments are primarily interacting with this derived layer, yes.
That's a fantastic way to visualize it. Really helps make those abstract levels more concrete. So how does coherence actually move? How does it get from that omnilectic layer of infinite potential down to a particle you can literally measure in a lab in the derived layer? What's the engine driving this cosmic journey down the ladder?
The key mechanism, the engine driving this whole process of manifestation, is what UCTE calls coherence reduction.
Coherence reduction, okay.
And it's not a passive thing. It's the process through which coherence differentiates into discrete, asymmetric, or measurable structures. Imagine that pristine, perfect coherence of the omnilectic layer. Through coherence reduction, symmetries get broken, potentials resolve, distinct features emerge.
Like carving a statue from a block of marble.
That's one way to think about it, yes. Each step down the ontological ladder involves a specific type of coherence reduction, systematically breaking down the unified coherence into specific forms, interactions, particles. It's described as a continuous, recursive unfolding. Structures emerge by feeding back upon themselves, producing both stability and diversity.
So it's not random.
Not random at all. It forms ordered strata, from the initial bivectors, the first structured plane elements, to spinors introducing chirality, then twisters packaging massless coherence. It's a precise, iterative process of differentiation driven by the inherent potential within coherence itself.
Okay, this is where UCTE really starts to shake things up for conventional physics. Particularly for anyone familiar with geometry or particle physics, it highlights a fundamental conceptual shift. UCTE reverses the conventional hierarchy of geometric entities, placing bivectors as primary.
Yes, this is a major point.
This is a big one. It changes how we think about the very building blocks of reality. In traditional physics, you often start with vectors, right? Simple directional arrows.
Magnitude and direction, the basics.
But UCTE starts with something more complex by vectors. Why is this reversal so crucial for UCTE's coherence-based view?
Right, and this reversal isn't just semantics or a mathematical preference. It's a deep ontological statement reflecting UCTE's core principle. In conventional physics, like you said, a vector is often seen as fundamental: direction, magnitude, an arrow. A bivector, then, is typically constructed from two vectors. It represents an oriented plane, or an infinitesimal area, or rotation.
Built from simpler things.
Built from vectors, yes. However, in UCTE, this order is flipped. Here, a bivector is the first ontological reduction of coherence into a structured plane element.
The first reduction.
The first structured reduction. Think of it not just as abstract math, but as a fundamental, coherent plane structure, emerging directly from that holectic layer of structured coherence. It encodes orientation, area, and continuous spin, serving as the primary carrier of coherent symmetry before further reductions.
Continuous spin, already.
Yes, inherent continuous spin and internal structure, which are then resolved in later steps. Like the universe's first drawing isn't a line, but a swirling, coherent patch, a plane with dynamics. And crucially, from this bivector, vectors are already a reduction of bivectors, not primitives.
Vectors come from bivectors.
They emerge as a gradient or directional projection derived from a bivector. So a vector is seen as a projection or a manifestation of a bivector's underlying richer structure, not the other way around.
So it's a direct inversion.
A direct inversion of the standard view where vectors build bivectors. And to spell out the difference in interpretive priority, physicists think vectors then bivectors. UCTE says bivectors then vectors.
Why does that matter so much?
Because it reflects UCTE's search for why these structures exist, their generative order, stemming from coherence, not just how they compute or combine. Standard physics often describes what we observe, epistemic truth, maybe. UCTE seeks a foundational, structural explanation, ontological truth, how and why observations arise from coherence.
And the bivector is the first how.
As the first reduction, it already embodies the rich internal dynamics that later differentiate into distinct vectorial forces and movements. It carries more information initially.
Okay, that's a truly profound shift in thinking. Bivectors first. So if bivectors are the primary coherent plane structure, the first reduction, how does this structure get further resolved, differentiated? What comes next to give it more specific characteristics beyond just being an oriented spinning plane?
This is where spinors come into play. They serve a very specific, crucial ontological role in UCTE's coherence reduction process. A spinor in UCTE is defined as a chiral operator that resolves a bivector into self-dual and anti-self-dual components.
Okay, chiral operator, self-dual. What does that mean practically?
Chiral means handedness, like left hand versus right hand.
Yeah.
Self-dual and anti-self-dual are mathematical ways to describe how these handed components relate to the bivector's orientation and spin. So its ontological role is fundamentally a symmetry resolver of the bivector plane.
A symmetry resolver.
Imagine that bivector as a coherent spinning patch. The spinor comes in and essentially splits or resolves it into two components that possess inherent handedness or chirality, a left-handed part and a right-handed part. This is responsible for implementing chirality in coherence reductions.
Yeah.
It encodes left-right symmetry, and it's breaking at a very fundamental level.
And that's important because,
well, many fundamental particles in physics, like electrons and neutrinos, exhibit chirality. Their interactions depend on their handedness. UCTE provides an ontological explanation for why this handedness exists, tracing it back to this spinor operation on the primary bivector.
so it's not just a property particles happen to have.
It's a result of this specific coherence reduction step. Conceptually, while spinors are often described mathematically as a kind of square root of a vector.
Which is already weird enough.
Right. Ontologically, in UCTE, it's primarily an operator of chirality. It acts after the bivector reduction, but before vectors fully emerge as discrete projections.
Okay, so coherence bivector spinor resolves chirality, vectors emerge later.
That's the sequence. The bivector provides the coherent plane. The spinor slices it, introducing handedness and duality, critical for distinguishing particles and interactions. A key step towards asymmetry.
All right, we've got coherence, then primary bivectors, then spinors resolving their handedness. Now let's bring in twisters, which, let's be honest, are often seen as highly complex, abstract mathematical tools in conventional physics. Roger Penrose's work, right?
Yes, typically viewed as a powerful but quite abstract mathematical framework.
So how do twisters fit into this new coherence-driven ontological picture? Are they just another geometric object, or do they have a very specialized function here?
In UCTE, twisters get a very precise reinterpretation and ontological placement. They fit seamlessly into the coherence hierarchy. They are not considered primitive entities like the bivector.
Okay, not fundamental then.
No, they are seen as specialized operators that emerge from a specific geometric plane, the Finsler-conformal Hopf plane, or FCHP. We'll get to that next.
Specialized operators? Doing what?
A twister in UCTE is defined as a null chiral operator emergent from the Finsler-conformal Hopf plane, FCHP. Its function is to package massless coherence reductions into a geometric framework built from self-dual bivectors restricted to the null shell.
Whoa, okay, let's break that down. Null, chiral, null shell.
Okay, null refers to light-like directions or speeds, paths light travels on. Chiral, again, is handedness. We just discussed that with spinors. Null shell is basically the set of all possible light-like paths or directions in this specific geometric space, FCHP. So a twister is an operator specifically designed to handle coherence when it's moving at light speed, null, and exhibiting a particular handedness, chiral, specifically the self-dual kind in this context. Their ontological placement is key. Twisters activate when the system reduces onto light-like directions.
So only for light speed stuff.
Primarily, yes. They serve as a massless channel coherence operator. This means they're specialized tools for very specific coherence reductions, those resulting in particles with zero rest mass.
Like photons, gluons.
Exactly. They naturally describe massless particles, like photons and gluons, because, in UCTE's view, twistor space is essentially the home of self-dual bivectors when they are restricted to null, light-like directions. They provide an economical and elegant way to describe massless fields because they sort of factor the dynamics through this special null bundle that the FCHP privileges.
So they're like mode selectors for massless handed phenomena.
That's a good way to think of it. They turn on or become relevant specifically in these null chiral situations, packaging those light-speed coherent structures.
That's a fascinating recontextualization. Twisters as specialized ontological operators, not just abstract math. So in this framework, what about the Penrose transform? The thing that maps solutions from twistor space to space-time. What does that represent in UCTE's coherence terms?
Right, the Penrose transform. From a UCTE perspective, it's reinterpreted as a coherence transform. This transform projects these holomorphic classes on twistor space into solutions of massless field equations in spacetime.
Holomorphic classes, fancy math term.
Yeah, basically well-behaved complex functions. Think of them as the package descriptions in twistor space. So the transform is the mechanism by which these abstract coherence holomorphic structures, these packaged null chiral operators within twistor space, get translated into the observable massless fields we detect, like photons.
So it connects the twistor packaging to the actual waves or particles we see.
Exactly. It acts as a coherence projection from this operator space of twistors to the observable massless fields. But it's crucial to remember the UCTE hierarchy. Bivectors are primary. Spinors and twistors are precision tools for slicing, resolving, and packaging that primary bivector structure under specific conditions, chirality, and nullness.
Successive stages of coherence reduction.
Bringing us closer to the discrete phenomena of the derived layer.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about FCHP. You mentioned this acronym, and the source material notes it carries a kind of dual meaning within UCTE, like layers of discovery within the theory itself.
That's right. Its meaning has evolved and refined.
It seems pivotal for understanding how these sophisticated geometric entities, especially twistors, actually emerge and find their home. Can you unpack this evolution for us?
Absolutely. The evolution of SCHP's meaning is really revealing. It shows a deeper, nested structure emerging in the theory, a specialization. Let's detail the two stages. 1. Original usage, upstream. Initially, FCHP stood for Finsler Coherence Hyperfractal Phase Space.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is. In this original context, it was conceived as the overarching ontological engine of dimensional emergence, big picture stuff. It emphasized anisotropy, chirality, and recursive fractal unfolding across scales. Basically how higher dimensions might appear and differentiate through coherence reduction.
So the deep background engine for geometry itself.
Kind of, yeah. The broad dynamic arena where the deepest coherence dynamics unfolded, governing the very emergence and layering of dimensions. A rich anisotropic scale-invariant phase space holding potential geometries. 2. Refined usage, downstream. The refined usage, the one more relevant for twistors, is Finsler conformal Hopf plane.
Finsler conformal Hopf plane. Still complex, but different.
Different focus. This is described as a specialized geometric structure derived from the hyperfractal phase space.
Derived from the first one. Okay.
Yeah. And it specifically encodes null-preserving conformal geometry and Hopf declarations, providing the natural cradle for twistor emergence.
So it becomes more specific, tailored for twistors.
Exactly. The focus shifts. Instead of a general phase space, it's a very specific geometric plane, tightly linked to the emergence of these null chiral structures.
Okay. Null-preserving conformal geometry and Hopf vibrations. Those sound pretty advanced. For us listeners, can you give a simplified picture of what those geometric properties do? What kind of shape or structure do they impose that makes this plane the perfect cradle for twistors, like a specialized workshop?
Excellent question. Let's try to simplify. Null-preserving conformal geometry. Null-preserving means it respects light-like directions paths of massless particles. It handles light speed correctly.
Okay, essential for photons.
Essential. Conformal geometry means it preserves angles but allows scale to change. Think of a map projection that keeps shapes locally correct but might distort distances.
Like Mercator projection, kind of.
Sort of analogous, yes. For twistors describing massless particles, this is crucial. The geometry inherently respects light's propagation and its scale invariance. Perfect environment for light speed things. Hopf vibrations. This is a bit harder to visualize. Mathematically, they structure spheres with circles in a very elegant way. Imagine taking a 3D sphere in 4D space and perfectly filling it with non-intersecting circles like fibers.
Okay. Hard to picture, but a specific structure.
A very specific, elegant structure. It naturally provides the kind of complex and projective geometry the twistor theory needs to work smoothly. It builds in the right shape for twistors. So the Finsler conformal Hopf plane is this derived, specialized arena. It embodies the perfect combination. Light-like, null, scale-invariant conformal, and circularly structured Hopf vibration properties that twistors need for their coherent packaging.
Got it. Specialized environment.
And this refinement represents an elegant pivot. The coherence principle from the upstream hyperfractal phase space is now explicitly geometrized into the invariance that makes twistors natural within the conformal geometry of the Hopf plane. And the boundless hyperfractal phase space gets focused into the Hopf plane, which naturally provides the projection, chirality, and complex structure twistors need.
So FCHP keeps the acronym.
To honor the continuity of the concept, yes. The hyperfractal phase space is upstream, the foundational engine. The Hopf plane is downstream, the specialized geometric arena for twistor emergence.
Not replaced, but nested.
Exactly. The hyperfractal richness is nested inside this more precise fiber geometry tailored for massless chiral coherence. Hashtag B. The FCHP and twistor emergence pipeline.
This evolution of FCHP makes a lot more sense now. It's a specialized stage in the bigger picture. Can you help us visualize this process better? Walk us through the pipeline. From the deepest engine, the hyperfractal thing, down to the actual emergence of twistors. How does this all connect geometrically, step by step?
Certainly. This pipeline illustrates the geometric pathway, how the primary bivector field, resolved by spinors, undergoes specific reductions and leads to massless fields via twistorization. Connects the dots. 1. Hyperfractal phase space. Upstream, FCHP. This is still the deepest background engine, governing dimensional emergence, laying the groundwork, dictating initial anisotropy, coherence unfolding, hyperdimensional layering, the grand blueprint.
The source potential for geometry.
2. FCHP, Hopf plane, downstream FCHP. This is the derived specialized geometric layer, emerging from the broader phase space. Its focus is on that null-preserving conformal geometry and Hopf vibrations we just discussed.
The twistor workshop.
Exactly, providing the natural stage for chirality and twistor packaging. This is where the initial bivector field exists as that first coherent reduction. Its spin and chirality are defined here. 3. Null shell. This is a critical step, a restriction within FCHP selecting light-like directions.
Filtering for light speed only.
Pretty much. Imagine the FCHP contains all sorts of paths. The null shell is only those moving at light speed. It's the locus of massless coherence reductions, where coherence gets constrained to the massless domain, isolating the conditions for photons, etc. to emerge. The bivector's self-dual parts, resolved by the spinor, are now confined to light speed propagation here. 4. projectivized null bundle. Okay, once restricted to the null shell, we look at the set of null directions modulo scaling.
Modulo scaling, meaning?
Meaning we only care about the direction of the light ray, not its intensity or how far it's gone, just pure direction. This bundle forms a conformal base for twistor space. It's the raw chiral null directional information needed for the next step, pure light directionality. 5, twistor space, and finally we arrive here, the holomorphic packaging of null chiral structures.
The final packaging step.
Yes. This space provides that natural representation of photons, gluons, and linearized gravitons. It's where these massless fields are mathematically and ontologically represented efficiently, capturing their null chiral properties, the destination for massless coherence reduction. So, connecting back to the entities, this sequence is the geometric pathway. Primary bivector field, first reduction on FCHP, undergoes self-dual split via spinor, restricted to the null shell, light speed domain, gets twisterized into twistor space, yielding massless fields.
So twistors emerge from this cascade?
Specialized operators emerging from this process designed for null chiral regimes, not primitive building blocks.
Yeah.
###C, coherence-based mass generation.
This is really fascinating, laying out that whole pipeline for massless particles emerging from the null shell via FCHP and twistors. But what about everything else? What about things with mass? Like us. Electrons, protons.
Good question. The vast majority of the universe we interact with has mass.
Right. If coherence reduction explains massless particles so elegantly, how does UCTE explain massive particles? Is it a totally separate mechanism or an extension?
It's presented as a unique and quite elegant mechanism for mass generation.
Yeah.
And crucially, it extends from the massless framework. It's not separate, but a differentiation within the same coherence reduction principle. In UCTE, the idea is mass depth of reduction off the null shell, coherence condensation.
Okay. Mass is depth of reduction off the null shell. What does that mean?
It means mass isn't some intrinsic fundamental property particles just have. It's a measure of how much coherence has condensed or deviated from that pure massless light-like state, the null shell.
So deviation from light speed is mass.
In a sense, yes. Think back to the null shell. F00 is the place of pure massless coherence. When coherence is perfectly on those light-like paths in FCHP, you get massless particles described by twistors. But what happens when that coherence is not perfectly aligned? When it moves off that null shell, the theory provides a clean path from massless to massive. It states that moving off the null shell, deforming F0 to F0, provides a clean path from twistor calculus, massless, to coherence condensation, massive, matching our coherence to mass story.
F0 means not on the null shell anymore.
Exactly. F0 is the condition for being light-like. F0 means it's moving slower in some sense, or its internal coherence dynamics are off that null track. So, simply put, the degree to which a coherent structure departs from purely light-like propagation, the degree its coherence condenses or slows down its internal dynamics relative to light speed, that is what manifests as mass.
Wow. It's a really different way to think about mass.
It's a crucial bridge. The same FCHP framework describing massless particles via twistors also provides a fundamental explanation for mass. When coherence isn't strictly on the null shell, it undergoes coherence condensation, moving to F0. That condensation, that deviation from pure nullity, is what we perceive as mass.
So it integrates mass right into the coherence ontology.
Makes it a derived characteristic based on the depth or degree of coherence reduction. Not an unexplained fundamental property, a unified picture. Mass isn't a separate mystery, but a consequence of how coherence manifests. #TEG_V, reconstructing physics and expanding horizons.
Okay, so UCTE clearly doesn't stop at particles and mass. It tackles the big cosmic mysteries too, offering a completely new perspective on gravity and even dark matter, huge puzzles in conventional physics.
It extends the core principle outward.
How does this coherence principle restructure our understanding of these foundational forces and phenomena? What does it offer that traditional models maybe struggle with?
Right. This is where UCTE really shows its ambition, extending coherence to macroscopic and cosmological scales. It offers some radical redefinitions. Hypergravity. Okay, Einstein's general relativity describes gravity as space-time curvature caused by mass energy. We know that.
Yeah, mass tells space-time how to curve.
And space-time tells mass how to move. UCTE offers a different lens. It redefines that space-time curvature as a coherence structuring effect. It proposes hypergravity as the coherence invariant underlying gravity.
Coherence structuring effect. So it's not mass directly warping space.
Not directly. It's more like the presence of energy causes a specific kind of coherent structure to form within the deeper onmolectic field. And that structure is what we perceive as gravity.
So gravity is a pattern in the coherence field.
Essentially, yes. It's a dynamic structuring effect of the underlying coherence, a deeper layer of how coherence organizes itself. Not just geometry, but coherence dynamics. This could offer new insights into black holes, the early universe, places where GR has issues, neutrino mass condensation. The theory also connects this to the puzzle of neutrino mass. Why do they have that tiny mass?
Always been a weird one.
UCTE explains that neutrino mass emerges through hypergravity coherence reduction, providing a direct link between neutrinos and dark matter.
Whoa, linking neutrinos and dark matter through gravity's coherence effect.
That's the claim. The specific coherence reductions tied to hypergravity are also responsible for giving neutrinos their small mass, intrinsically linking them to the fabric of space-time's coherence. Dark matter, UCTE. And here's maybe the most profound shift for cosmology. Forget searching for exotic WIMPs or axions, maybe.
Yeah, what is it then?
In UCTE, dark matter is not exotic matter, but coherence residues arising from hypergravity and neutrino condensates.
Coherence residues, leftovers.
Leftovers. Subtle residual structures of coherence from the processes of hypergravity and neutrino mass formation. It's an emergent property of coherence reductions, not a separate substance.
So it's woven into the fabric, not extra stuff floating around.
Exactly. A potentially elegant solution integrating dark matter into the coherence ontology as a consequence of the universe's structuring processes, rather than needing new particles. #B. The coherence vacuum.
That's a totally novel take on dark matter, recontextualizing it completely. But what about the empty space around us, the vacuum? Traditional physics talks about quantum foam, the Higgs field. Does UCTE see this vacuum differently? Is it really empty?
Absolutely not empty. UCTE describes the coherence vacuum as far from inert. It's presented as the resonant ground state of the omnilectic field, rich in latent energy.
The ground state of that first layer.
Yes. Far from being a void, it's conceptualized as the source of coherence-driven emergence and potential energy extraction.
Potential energy extraction, like zero-point energy ideas.
It certainly opens the door to thinking about that, yes. It implies a vast dynamic reservoir of potential within the fabric of space itself. An active medium. Not a passive backdrop, but an active participant. And to detail its structure, UCTE introduces the vacuum coherence tensor.
Another tensor.
Yeah, it's a mathematical way to describe it. A dynamic tensor encoding gradients and structures of the coherence vacuum. And this tensor isn't static. It actively governs dimensional emergence and field formation.
So the vacuum itself has structure and actively shapes reality.
That's the idea. It dictates how dimensions unfold, how fields like gravity or electromagnetism manifest from the underlying coherence. It's the background engine governing emergence and potential. A field of pure potential, dynamically structured, #C, the observer function and consciousness.
Okay, this is where UCTE really goes beyond traditional physics, connecting directly to the observer, to consciousness itself. This isn't just particles and forces anymore. It's about our being in the universe.
It is. It integrates them fundamentally.
It suggests observation isn't passive. What does UCTE say about this observer function?
Exactly. It forces a reevaluation of the observer's role. Observer function defined as a universal operator of symmetry reduction. Universal.
Universal, meaning?
Meaning it's not limited to human perception. Wherever reduction occurs, the observer is present.
Whoa. So anytime potential becomes actual, that's observation.
That's the implication. Any process where coherence differentiates into discrete, asymmetric, measurable structures inherently involves an observer function. Quantum measurement, bivector formation, any instance where potential resolves into actuality. This observer function is active.
The universe is constantly observing itself into being.
In a fundamental sense, yes. Through these reduction events, it's an inherent aspect of the coherence dynamics. Meta-operator. Then there's a higher level concept, meta-operator.
Yeah.
It integrates the observer function, asymmetry resonance operator, and consciousness, symmetry coherence operator.
Okay. Observer function introduces asymmetry, consciousness maintains coherence.
That seems to be the idea. This meta-operator governs the modulation of reality emergence. It suggests a profound active link between observation, selecting possibilities, creating asymmetry, the maintenance of coherence, underlying unity, and the actual manifestation and evolution of reality.
Two sides of the same coin, driving reality.
Crucial for the ongoing unfolding of reality, yes. Glyphic consciousness architecture. And to model this audacious interplay, UCTE proposes a glyphic consciousness architecture.
Glyphs. Like symbol.
A symbolic framework for modeling consciousness, coherence, and intelligence, using glyphs as operators in resonance and recursion. It's an attempt to formally represent these non-physical yet ontologically crucial aspects using a symbolic language capturing coherence dynamics.
So the glyphs aren't just pictures, they're operators in this model.
Active operators within this meta framework, yes.
That's revolutionary. We're not passive observers. We're actively involved in reality's manifestation. Our consciousness isn't just in the universe, but an active participant in its emergence and modulation.
It's a mind-blowing implication.
Absolutely. Think about free will, scientific objectivity. #D, coherence in biological systems and intelligence. So from the cosmos to zero, to gravity, dark matter, consciousness, coherence seems to be the thread weaving through all levels of UCTE. How does it extend this framework into living systems, biology, even intelligence? Does it bridge those gaps?
It's remarkably comprehensive in scope, yes. Applying coherence across an astonishing range, bridging physics to complex systems, coherence harmonic algebra. It introduces a specific mathematical framework describing resonance overlaps of coherence modes. This framework links bosons, harmonic chords, and fermions, resonance nodes.
Harmonic chords and resonance nodes. So particles are like music.
Kind of. Bosons, force carriers, are seen as harmonic chord stable resonant coherence patterns. Fermions, matter particles, are resonance nodes, points of coherence condensation within these structures. It's about how these modes resonate and interact to form stable matter. Biological coherence engines, living systems, are seen as prime examples. UCTE identifies natural implementations of coherence engines in biology.
Like what?
Things like cellular boundaries, bioelectric codes, DNA resonance. Biological systems are understood as actively working to restore or sustain coherence after perturbation.
So life fights entropy by maintaining coherence.
That's a way to look at it. A fundamental drive towards maintaining and optimizing coherence. Organisms as complex systems designed to keep a high degree of internal coherence. Cell membranes maintain gradients, DNA seen as a resonant structure, not just chemical code, bioelectric code. This extends biology beyond just genetics. UCTE posits a field-based informational layer governing biological regulation and development beyond DRNR.
An electrical blueprint.
Essentially, yes. Extending genetics and epigenetics into a coherence-based coding, suggesting electrical fields, resonant frequencies, coherence patterns play a fundamental role in guiding development, regulation, repair, and an informational layer guiding form and function. Intelligence. Looking ahead, UCTE envisions intelligence, a symbiosis of human consciousness and AI into a higher collective intelligence.
Human AI merge.
But grounded in coherence. Not just combining minds, but achieving amplified integrated coherence through their integration. Advanced intelligence emerging from complex evolving coherence patterns between agents. Augmented genius. Building on that, augmented genius is described as a coherence-aligned extension of human intelligence through intelligent systems.
Using AI to boost our coherence.
Essentially, enhancing human creativity, problem-solving, intuition by aligning with coherence principles via these integrated systems, leveraging collective coherence for new intellectual capabilities, Eureka scale, and finally, even a way to measure breakthroughs. UCTE proposes the Eureka scale.
A scale for aha moments.
A logarithmic measure of breakthrough-level insights, yes. It helps in situating discoveries in relation to coherence-driven ontology, evaluating how deeply new knowledge taps into the fundamental coherence of reality.
So a bigger Eureka score means it reveals more fundamental coherence.
That's the idea. Quantifying significance based on connection to the underlying generative principles, not just practical application. #outro. So to sort of wrap up our deep dive here, the unified coherence theory of everything, UCTE, as laid out by Lillian, presents this incredibly comprehensive, ambitious framework. Its goal is really nothing less than unifying mathematics, physics, and consciousness under this single overarching principle, coherence.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. It profoundly redefines fundamental things, the generative nullity of Z, the pregnant void, the primary nature of bivectors as first reductions, the specialized role of twistors packaging massless coherence. By setting up that layered ontological hierarchy, the theory reveals, or claims to reveal, an internal ontology that makes coherence the true origin of reality.
And then it rebuilds physics on top of that.
It reconstructs external physics so that its equations become expressions of this ontology, showing how observable phenomena are these downstream reductions. The refined FCHP is key here, providing the geometric stage for massless phenomena and that elegant path to mass as coherence condensation. UCTE really invites us to see the universe not as just a collection of parts, but as this dynamically unfolding tapestry woven from a single coherent fabric.
What an incredible journey. Really, a completely new way of looking at the universe. You've just had a peek, listening in, into a theory that could fundamentally change how we understand literally everything. Positioning standard physics not as the final word, but as a derived description, a downstream reduction of something much deeper, this coherence-driven reality.
Mhm.
The scale of the vision is just breathtaking. Redefining zero, unifying gravity and dark matter, the active role of consciousness. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and consider the underlying coherence giving everything form and meaning. What new questions does this spark for you, dear listener, about your own place in this coherent, emergent reality?
And, maybe a final thought to leave you with. If coherence truly is the ontological ground, and if observation is truly inseparable from it, does this imply that our consciousness isn't just in the universe looking out,
Participating.
but an active participant in its very emergence? What new responsibilities might that place on our understanding of reality, on our science, our philosophy? If our awareness is intrinsically linked to the universe's unfolding, what potential lies within us to engage with, perhaps even influence, the deep, coherent structures of existence? Something to ponder.